Good evening, TheoTrade. This is Corey Rosenblum, man. You're watching the Theo Nightly video for the 3rd of June here in 2021, and we had another session where we actually got the dominant thesis, and that dominant thesis, at least in the short term, this is our hourly chart, was a pullback retracement, or as you like to call it, a rubber band snapback. Is that the end all to be all? Maybe not, but it is this concept that we've played up into resistance, we've played up into overbought levels, top of the volume profile, and all the sort of components from the prior high, that was roughly 42.32, and we are back lower. The Nasdaq played a little bit more cleanly, and it's playing down from 14,000. And on the volume profile, we'll just take a look at it from the 30-minute chart, just quickly looking at it. This is for very short-term traders, so it's not necessarily for all of us, but when we play from the top of the yellow, that's just basically a upper standard deviation. Think Bollinger Band, same type of logic. And that does let the market play lower. And it often plays through the distribution to the bottom. Now that's the Nasdaq. I think the Nasdaq was the strongest market, or strongest, weakest, but the market that played within the profile levels the best. And on the bigger picture, we see that Nasdaq was the weakest, or at least the technology sector was the weakest of today's sessions or sectors. And the strongest, have to sort of squint to look at it, but it's staples and utilities. Those are defensive names. Actually, the consumer discretionary was actually weaker, but these are the strongest. That's up about 0.5%. Again, that is staples, which is things that we need at all points in time, and utilities, which sometimes act like a bond market, or at least a safety play. VIX, just reviewing today's session here on the 3rd of June, the VIX was up about 3%, and that is coming off these low levels at 16. Bonds, again, quick note, are coming down as well from profile levels, but they are continuing the downtrend. That means yields, the flip side or the other side of the bond market, yields are actually holding support and possibly playing back to the 1.7 or 1.8 level. When you see this on the TNX, it's not 17. It means it's roughly 1.5% for the 10-year Treasury note, or up here is 1.8%. And if the market ever did get to that 2% level, that could be significant. And we are quite a way away from that, but that's something to watch if this uptrend or continued motion takes us back to the 2% level. That would be key, and that would be really detrimental for some of the market participants. Here are the financial sectors, or at least the XLF. Strangely enough, or maybe not so strangely, the XLF played up to a new, call this an all-time high. I want to double check that. It is a new all-time high for the XLF financial sector, and on the back of, or with the support of, some leading financial names. That would include, I should do it this way, we'll look at the monthly chart on the left and the daily chart on the right. That's Goldman Sachs pushing up to another new all-time high. And we'll see these in the scan list, but it's just another swing high. There's actually other stocks that made new 52-week highs as well. Beneath that, we see NVIDIA. And NVIDIA has been violently rallying, or at least persistently rallying. We are going to have a split coming up, but it is just shy of that 700 per share level. And did anybody see this coming back in 2015? Certainly I did not. That NVIDIA would be from the 12 bound all the way to 700. Nevertheless, such is the power of a strong uptrend. Strong uptrends are not without pullbacks or retracements or moments where the downside is profitable. And that was not the Corona crash. That was well ahead of it. And the Corona crash, if we can call it that for NVIDIA, was there. Simply a blip on the monthly chart. And that strong stock getting stronger has persisted all the way to these new highs, and they are extending. And we want to make a note about gold, because gold on the monthly chart is still at this 1900 level, so the big picture is still relatively bullish, but today's session was a trend day to the downside if we look at the daily chart. And that just shows it playing down from this 1900 per ounce. And that's a key to trading today's session, or at least a short term, which is markets that go up. We talk about retracements or flags or rubber bands. That's an upswing, that's a downswing. That's an upswing, that's a downswing. All the way up, all the way down. And we have these concepts called rubber band snapbacks, and those are the periods where the price falls. Those can also be considered counter trend or against the prevailing trend, which is to the upside. But there certainly are ways and trades and strategies, at least in the intermediate term or short term, to play against these trends, and those would be on the rubber band snapbacks or pullbacks down to the target of those rising moving averages. Nevertheless, gold does continue to be strong, but into resistance. Energy also continues to be strong, and it was a relatively strong, but it was a sector that did close the session positively, and that is the XLE, and that's on the back of some stocks such as, we'll see them in here, let's looking at the percent gain list. ConocoPhillips would be one name. We're looking at ExxonMobil would be another, and some others would be down the list in, well, we'll look at these later, but those are energy sector or energy type stocks in the S&P 100. Now, what was off today? What was down today? Everything. So it's strange to look at the market. This is our S&P 500 list, and we see broad, actually take a look quickly at our advanced decline. This is done by looking at the index watch for everybody in Thinkorswim. From the index watch, let's select the S&P 500 out of the public list, and that will give us an exact number of stocks that were positive on the session, or advancing as we call it, and stocks that were negative. 245, or just call it right down the middle, 250, 250. It's an even split. So an equal number of stocks were positive, an equal number of volume was flooding into advancing issues or advancing stocks, such as these in the sectors, but the same amount of volume was flowing out in terms of declining stocks. But look closely at this. Why is the market down today? Because the declining issues included some big tech names such as Netflix and Tesla. You want to know why the market was down today? That's one of the main reasons, that right there. Tesla. Netflix is not quite that big. Intel also, we don't want to ignore Intel, but it was off 2% today. That means the capital or the market cap was double, actually 2.5 times. So money that flowed into the advancing issues was roughly the 1 billion marker here, whatever the numbers kind of wind up being. Some little math takes place here, but it was essentially 2.5 to 1 of declining capital. And that is from our heat map. You can see it easier. What does that mean when a stock is down on the session, like Amazon, and that was in the XLY for Amazon, discretionary, Apple, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, and there is Tesla. You can see that the weight or the market cap is going to be larger, and that will influence the point totals of the S&P or the Nasdaq. And as we just saw on the index, the money or capital flowing into or out of the market. Despite having equal numbers of stock, positive and negative, the money flow was over 2 to 1. And this is one. So these are the declining issues, and we'll take a look from top, or sort them from the weakest. We'll do that here. And the weakest stock was Tesla. We'll take a peek at its daily chart before we move to the next topic. Tesla is back to the 550 or 560 print. That is down from about 640. So Tesla is attempting a retest of a major support level that will update right here. On the other side, Texas Instruments was low today. Intel, we discussed, somewhat similar to Tesla on the chart at least. Boeing helped pull, to an extent, the Dow down. And there's Netflix, which is down as well. Lots of lines on the chart. All it says is Netflix is in a trading range, or the box. Starbucks was down as well. But it wasn't all bearish. Again, I mentioned that roughly half the stocks in the market, at least the S&P, were positive on the session. Some of them made new all-time highs or 52-week highs. And as we conclude the video, I always like to show these just for scanning or just for thinking or thought processes. 39 stocks in the S&P 500, despite a down session, did make new 52-week highs, or again, in some case, like NVIDIA, new all-time highs. We talked about Pepsi the other day in Tuesday night's video, talked about Pepsi making a new 52-week high. Not to be outdone, Coca-Cola said, hold my soda. I'll be right there with you. Coca-Cola made a new 52-week high as well. And we'll just quickly pull those up. There's Pepsi, not impressive, but still it is a consumer discretionary beverage company. And right behind it, Coca-Cola. Now, Coke had its day in the sun today, but so did, we'll look at some of them, Nvidia. There's Bank of, well, I should put the weekly chart over here just to show some perspective. Bank of America. We just hinted at Coca-Cola. There's Oracle, Morgan Stanley. Caterpillar actually made a new 52-week high. Some little bull flags in Caterpillar didn't think they were going to make their target, but they actually made and exceeded, which is the uptrend continuation for this strong stock. Again, we talked about Goldman Sachs, Target, a retail company, General Motors. This is again off the scan. Ford, Schlumberger. And there are many, many others, but sadly there are 39 other stocks joining the market at these highs. What's up? What's the play? Split market rotation. This is not bearish nor bullish. It is more neutral, and there's a lot of nuances and money flow going on behind the scenes that most likely continues this trading range or chop. I know we're all looking for a breakout. Believe me, I am too. But with the market split, with rotation split, strength here, weakness here, that splits the market and keeps us inside, especially for the Russell, what we're calling a volatility box. As always, be careful and safe. This is Corey Rosenblum with tonight's Theo video update for June the 3rd, 2021.